our future. And this is our youth talking to us about having a dedicated youth counselor. Basically, that. What can we do? How can we communicate that with the service providers or the people that are working on these things? What can we do about the bullying at schools? It's happening right now. It's happening in the schools. You heard one of the youth mention that. We touched on that thing. We also they talked about more support for subjects, tutorial. When they're in school. That's what a couple of our youth talked about. That's what I wanted to raise here. On COVID recovery. For the last 2-3 years. What they like to see. And we have to do something.
It's on again.
Yeah, I gotta wait for Kirk to do something real quick.
How do we help our youth that are in school right now in Thunder Bay, for example, or in other urban centers? A modified class schedule. One of them talked about even 5 minutes time. They're telling us something. They're asking us for some support, and I think we shouldn't just say that we're gonna address those things and we're gonna try to do our best type of thing. Why our processes sometimes are questioned. Why sometimes the trust issue, if in fact am I just talking and not really being listened to. But the way we can try to do some, and I support the Grand Chief and I support the Deputy Grand Chief and everybody, to try to follow up on some of these things that our youth raised. Before we move on to other topics, I think I think Lyndon did a wonderful job in trying to facilitate this youth panel, and we need to make sure that the issues that they brought up are not put on a side. We have to do. There's some immediacy to follow up those things. So I hope that will be done. I don't know if there's enough time to do something on the floor here, or is there something else that's going to be done? I just wanted to share that and make sure that we don't forget the substance of those discussions and the experiences that were shared to us. It's important. It's a very important thing. It's not something that we can just say we'll do it after. It's right in front of us, what they're telling us. They're experiencing that thing. When they go back to school tomorrow, they'll be experiencing that. And how do we advocate for those kind of things? How do we make sure that those advocacies are in place, whether if it's through NAN, through us, or through other PTO organizations or other forms of supports? But we have to do something. Okay? Miigwech.
Miigwech, Chief Wayne, for those very strong comments. Yes, and the youth were here. We heard the youth, and I'm just reminded of, like I said before, the resolution that the Youth Council and the youth put forward at Kiwewin to be very integral part of all the decision making that's happening. We're organizing through our youth program. I'm reminded also of the Youth and Elders Gathering that's going to be coming up on November 11th, 12th, and 13th in Thunder Bay, and looking at all these issues too, like working with our education partners who've presented yesterday about all the different shortfalls and a lot of the areas that are there for our supporting students. So we'll be organizing a strategy session forward, given the topics that they had here. Working with the municipalities as well, because many of our, like you said, our students do come to Thunder Bay, Sioux Lookout, Timmins, Sault Ste. Marie, You know, we have to do our best and our due diligence to work with those support mechanisms like the police, like the hospital that we were talking about. So I think in our next presentation, before we leave today, we do want to come out with a concrete plan with some dates in terms of what's happening with the strategy session to ensure that our youth voice is heard in moving ahead. I didn't, the Grand Chief, did you want to comment on some of the Chiefs? Yeah. So I'd like to get our Grand Chief to say some words here too.
No, I agree with you there, Chief. We oftentimes I find our students are sending us a message and they're not explicitly saying it, but they're sometimes asking for us to help them out. And I heard that in many of our youth's voices, not just today, but throughout the past few days and post-COVID even. And so I think an action plan does need to occur. We do have our Chiefs Assembly come January 17th, and when it comes to action, which this executive has stressed that we need to do, I think we'll have an update on what we've done there, Deputy? on what we've done from this point until then, January 17, I believe it was the date, and have an update for you at that assembly on what specifically has occurred as a result of these our youth speaking, what has been done as far as advocacy, what have we done as an executive to address some of these concerns, and have a report for you and an update for you at that assembly. But if you wish sooner, we could also do that too, Chief.
Thank you, Grand Chief. I just wanted to make sure that we have some assurance that things are going to be followed up. That's all I'm asking for, and I'm asking for this to be done on an urgent, immediate basis, because these are real issues that they just talked about. Yeah. The bullying issue, the mental health versus, let's say, mental health versus the schoolwork. There's a number of issues that were raised there. We need to try to get those things somehow, try to advocate for those things. So I need that. I think if we get that assurance from the Deputy Grand Chief and the Grand Chief that this will be done, and so our youth can hear it and say that they're going to be working on the issues that we raised. Mm-hmm. And that's how you make, that's how you build a strong foundation, when you start delivering on those things, when we start following up on those things. We just want to make sure that we don't forget our people, our young people, everybody that's part of our nation. Okay, Migach.
Migach for that, Chief.
Hi. As we go on to the next topic, I just thought I could close it with a suggestion. Maybe some of us youth can get together and think about what we can do. But I know in my experience, sometimes adults don't, or in the school, they don't take us seriously because we're kids. So my suggestion is that, I don't know, just have adults on our side. But anyways, yeah. So the next topic.
Very good, thank you. So again, thank you to our youth co-chair for introducing that agenda item, and it was actually a really good session. Good to have that interaction and the involvement of the youth. And as Chief Munoz says, we need to follow up. So Migach for the suggestion. So we're going to move right along. Next we have on the agenda the education jurisdiction update, and Jocelyn Chichu is here. Will make the presentation. So Jocelyn, take it away.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, chiefs and proxies, our education partners, our education committee, education staff who are here today, and to our observers and our youth panelists. I'd like to thank our elder Lucy for the last 3 days for being here and providing support and opening up our days for us. I'd also like to extend my greetings to our Youth Council, our Women's Council, and our Elders Council, and also like to thank the Drum. I'm here today to give you an update on education jurisdiction. The presentation I have today is going to give a high-level view of progress on the education jurisdiction negotiations and to outline the important role of participating community involvement. To date, our negotiations, we are pretty close to having a draft education agreement. The agreement has been based on the agreement in principle that was signed off in 2018, December 2018. And once that draft is completed, we're going to be ready to bring that to communities and for feedback and some direction. We have another implementation plan that we need to also work on at the negotiation table, and that has not been started. And then, of course, the fiscal transfer agreement has also, those negotiations have not started as well. The big piece that we're here today, and you've heard from various presenters, you heard from my colleagues this morning, Sherry and Kathy speak to the importance of having community involvement and support for the activities that we are undertaking for this agreement. As you all know, we've all been closed to community visits, and community in-visit and these types of meetings are so much better for feedback, to share information and just to have conversations and say, hi, how's it going? You know, what's going on in your community? So we are beginning to receive some invitations to come and visit, to come and present the work to date. So if you're interested in having us, please, you know, reach out to one of our staff or reach out to our director or deputies team here. One of our big pieces is our community-based coordinator program, I'll say. We have funding for each participating community to have a CBC. Some communities have hired individuals, and it's been difficult to recruit and retain people on staff. There are some barriers. One is capacity, another is space. But communities have been coming up with some creative ways on how to begin those community engagement activities, to begin thinking about jurisdiction and working with people, parents, teachers, youth, leadership, and so on the education agreement. We've also done some virtual meetings with individuals, education staff from communities who are trying to kickstart those activities and recruiting a CBC. We've had those throughout the spring and summer, and they were bi-weekly for a bit. So those were, we got some good feedback. We've also, currently, I was speaking with one of our staff here who's coordinating the CBC efforts and community engagement, and was told that there are 13 First Nations right now who are active out of the 39. And when I say active, I mean active in terms of trying to recruit, trying to get activities going, working with our staff, working on their flow-through agreements. The community involvement is, we can't stress how important this is. We need communities to get involved, to begin these conversations. When I say invitations, it's going to be more than one visit, more than one presentation, and we're beginning to get together our information to do that. We need feedback on two major areas of a few, but these are the two big ones that we're looking for some feedback and looking forward to having discussions on. The first one is that there will be two lawmaking bodies of the new territory-wide education system. And territory-wide education system is just the term we're using now. We're hoping that, you know, when the agreement is complete or going to ratification, that it'll be named something else, something that is hours, I'll say. The first lawmaking body are the communities, of course. They're going to need to develop their own local education laws. And then there's a territory-wide education body, which will develop the territory-wide education body laws. The second piece is governance at the local education community level, and also with the territory-wide education body, and I'll get into that a bit further in my presentation. The first piece is under education laws. So under the agreement, there are two types of lawmaking bodies. The first lawmaking body is each participating First Nation who will make laws applicable to their local schools and programs. The second lawmaking body is a territory-wide education body. Again, that is just what we have in the agreement for now. That can be renamed to something that, you know, is ours and reflective of our schools, our learners, our communities, and so on. And it will make laws applicable to the whole system. Local education laws will apply to a community's education system, its schools and education programs for primary and secondary students. Under the education agreement, a local education law must deal with certain core elements. However, each First Nation may add to its local education law any current education policies, systems it may have in place, and can introduce unique elements specific to the community. So this is going to be quite the undertaking for communities to develop those laws. And currently, we are working on a resources and a toolkit with templates, things to consider when communities making their laws. We are also considering, how to get that ball rolling, and it's going to be a lot of work. Again, we're happy to discuss, happy to meet with you and get that work going and for communities to consider. The territory-wide education body laws. The territory-wide education body will pass laws that apply to primary and secondary education in participating First Nations. These laws will relate to education and operation standards of school in participating First Nations. Each participating First Nation through the education agreement will delegate some of its authority to the territory-wide education body. This delegated authority will enable the territory-wide education body to provide oversight of the territory-wide education system. So the three agreements that we're working on negotiating with Canada include the education agreement, the fiscal transfer agreement, and implementation plan. Once completed, they will come into effect following a successful community ratification and passage of the confirming federal statute. Included in that ratification package for communities to be prepared to vote, they'll need to have their local education law completed. Governance. The local education and territory-wide education body. So for the new territory-wide education system, will not be run by Anishinaabe Nation. It will be governed by the participating First Nations that ratify the education agreement through the territory-wide education body. Participating First Nations will continue to manage their local schools and education programs and will participate in the governance of the territory-wide education body. Each participating First Nation will have representation on the board of the territory-wide education body. Second-level services will remain available to support education delivery in schools. So the first level is the community. First Nations will continue responsibility for delivery of the full range of education programs and services for elementary and secondary education. First Nations and their local education authority will manage and administer schools as set out in their local education law. They may also choose to develop culturally appropriate programs such as land-based learning and First Nation language programming. Second-level services, which are support services, regional organizations are participating First Nations working jointly may take responsibility for coordinating education support services for participating First Nation schools. For example, a participating First Nation in need of a speech therapist for its school may coordinate this service through a tribal council to the benefit of all member communities, or it may coordinate with other participating First Nations to purchase this service. This allows a group of schools to coordinate their budgets for support services in local schools. And the third level, which is the new level, I guess, this one doesn't currently exist. The territory-wide education body will support and set standards applicable to participating First Nation schools and distribute education funding. Participating First Nations will select the board of the territory-wide education body, and the territory-wide education body will be accountable to participating First Nations through annual and special meetings. Community engagement. So I gave a really high-level overview of the agreement, the new third-level body there, the territory-wide education body. And we've had, several presentations and meetings, virtual, some in person. And I think one of the most important comments that I think we received, and we kind of gave us an idea of how much work is ahead of us, is we had one person participate, and she shared with us, she's like, I've had to listen to this overview presentation about 5 or 6 times before I really understood what you're trying to do. And she works in education. So, you think about that person, that's her career, that's her profession, right? And you think about, a community member who's going to need to make an informed decision if this is something that they want their community to be a part of. So there's a lot of work that needs to happen. As I said, each participating First Nation will have to vote whether they want to be a part of the agreement and the new territory-wide education system. A question that we get to with around the CBCs and accessing the resources and materials and equipment that we have for this, the community engagement work is, does that mean we're in? Does that mean we're legally bound to this agreement? And the answer is no. You're not legally bound unless your community votes yes, right? So you can access and use those resources to build your local education code, to build awareness on the agreement, on how education works in your communities. So there's a good opportunity there. As I said, participating First Nations will need to develop their local education codes, and that the participating First Nations will also be involved in the governance of the territory-wide education body. Further on community engagement, negotiations with Canada will continue, and we will continue to come to your communities and meet, share in forums like this, participate in conferences and so on. I know we're going to be at the Youth and Elders gathering in 2 weeks' time to get their ideas on jurisdiction, hear more from youth and elders on what they like to see in their communities when it comes to schools and supporting their learners. We're looking forward to our team, our staff, and also our negotiation team to visit communities when it's safe to do so, to meet with your leadership, your educators, community members, and your students to share information about the agreement and look for your feedback. And as I said, we do have funding and resources to hire a person in the community to assist with engagement and to begin that work on your local education laws. We had a CBC workshop a couple of weeks ago, and that was we were hoping to roll out and talk about the toolkit, the 2 toolkits we have right now. One's just on education jurisdiction, and the other one's on the history of education in our communities. And we had PowerPoints, we have pamphlets, we have all kinds of tools and things for a person or a team, I'll say, to begin that work in the community and getting, our community members thinking about education. And, we found that is great. You know, we were prepared to do that, but I felt like we needed to take a step back and just do some high-level overview discussions and presentations on jurisdiction and having that opportunity for those participants to ask questions. So, you know, we're ready. Like, I'm going to say our team, we have a very small team, but I feel like we're ready to begin those community-based coordinators going. And, you know, I'm hoping that out of our time here this week that you'll be able to assist us in getting that going. As I said, as a community-based coordinators, you know, is going to help build an understanding around the agreement, the fiscal agreement implementation plan. Again, work with your communities to develop their education code. And also we have resources here too, like we're willing to come up to communities and help get those education codes started and going. And, you know, it's going to be a learning process. You know, this is the way, you know, we're hoping that things will go, but I think, you know, in some communities, we're going to need to adapt and try other approaches and other alternatives. And lastly is to prepare the participating First Nations, your community members, for ratification of the agreements. And I've already stressed, you know, it's very important for communities to know, be informed about the agreement so that they can make a good decision on voting. We have resources here. We have a team that's ready to help with training, shipping up those mobile offices and the equipment, and run through those toolkits with education staff or community coordinators. And lastly is, you know, making that a good decision on voting about the agreement. I would just like to point out our staff. I know we haven't, often we don't get time to do this, but I just wanted to say here's our staff. We have Serenity Perry here. She's our research coordinator. She's also been taking notes for us this week. We also have Basil Bitts. He's also been taking notes this week. We have Claudia Stein. She's our structural readiness coordinator, and she's been helping coordinate this conference. And I was going to say she left the room, but she's standing over there. She'll also be doing a presentation about her upcoming activities on structural readiness. We have Natalie Salt, who you've probably seen at registration. She's our territorial coordination assistant. She works in some of the community engagement and CBC related activities. And we have Brian Achinapiniscum. He's our territorial coordinator, and he's been asking chiefs and proxies if they needed anything. He's our person doing that, and he's also the lead with the training and CBCs. And then there's myself, Jocelyn Chichu, the manager of this awesome team. So just in closing, I just want to make a couple points. You know, invite us to begin the discussions. It's going to be a lot of presentations, visits, phone calls, coffees, meetings, open houses, etc. We have, you know, these amazing resources and funding toolkits, staff, people who can help, you know, get this work up and off the ground in your communities. And yeah, just, you know, reach out to us, please. You know, we really want to come and begin sharing this information with you all. So with that, that wraps up my presentation. Miigwech. Thank you.
See if there's any questions. Thank you. Chiefs, if you do have any questions, there is an opportunity if you have any questions on that presentation. Yes, proxy for Airland.
Hi. Hi, my name is Krista. I'm from Airline First Nation, and I'm sitting here as proxy today. So I was listening to the presentation, and in my community, I'm working on like the whole REA process and stuff, and I'm just wondering, like, how do those two like go together, or, you know, I'm just a little bit confused on that. Like, there's some communities that are going ahead and going into these REAs, and I just want to know like how the education jurisdiction and that will like, you know, come together, or I don't know.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, so especially with in the new realm of the education reset table, there's going to be some changes as well. We're looking at your EPP funding as well, and working with you and also our education partners to make it to change that paradigm to make it more needs-based funding as well. But at the same time, too, we really want to encourage Aroland and other First Nation communities as well to even start looking at ways to even looking at developing your own education laws, your ability to assert your jurisdiction over education as well. So these preliminary discussions that the CBCs want to come into the various communities will also add to that or complement the work that you're doing securing that funding as well. So yeah, and we could work with you and your education authority too to really look at ways on how we could transfer that proposal based to more or less a needs based discussion as well. So.
Miigwech, thank you for the question. Any more questions or comments? Oh, Andrew can sort of explain a little bit more.
Like Deputy Grand Chief says, we encourage you to go ahead and proceed with your REA. It's a process just to look at your funding, increasing your funding, and the other thing is the governance structure. So those are the two things that will help. But at the same time, you're still under the Indian Act with that process. With the education jurisdiction, we're trying to get out of the Indian Act and have our own be recognized through legislation. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Andrew, for the explanation, part of the response. So I don't see any more, so we're going to move along. I'm going to ask Connie to move along to the next agenda item.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to call Claudia Stein to come and do her presentation on structural readiness.
Good afternoon. I'd like to give thanks to the drum and to the prayer for the renewal that it gives us. So my name is Claudia Stein, and I am the Structural Readiness Coordinator. And if you don't know what structural readiness is, we're going to start with that. But I'm going to take the next 15 minutes just to go over some of the activities that we have in our work plan this year to see if, you know, if any of you are interested in taking part in them. So just as some background, Structural Readiness is a year-to-year proposal-based program that supports community engagement, capacity building, and communications in defining the First Nation education system. Jocelyn is my manager, so it's Structural Readiness's role to support that program through communications or capacity development. So for this year's activities, the first one I would like to highlight is the Education Jurisdiction Summit, and that is scheduled for February 23rd and 22nd at the Delta. The two-day summit is open to education staff from the communities, of course our education partners and leadership, as well as hearing from our education partners. It's also an opportunity for us to hear from other First Nation groups across Canada who have worked on an education system. So this year we are looking to include guests from James Bay, Quebec Agreement area, Manitoba First Nation education systems, and the Mushkashay Education School Commission to speak and to share their stories of their education system. So the other thing that we were doing this year is we are going to be running a Relational Governance Foundation workshop. So I have a little quote here, but also in your chief's kit, there is a larger article that will speak to more about this program. It's a relatively new training, but I'll just read the quote. So relational governance is ultimately meant to help people identify forms of authority, citizenship, and law that work towards building Indigenous institutions. This workshop covers the difference between relational and exclusive sovereignty, the connection between sovereignty and governance, with a mix of presentations and interactive activities, intended to help answer the question, how do we locate responsibility within a relational web based on Indigenous laws? So we're going to be offering this workshop. Capacity is quite limited, so it's only limited to 30 right now, and we're hoping that we would run it for the Chiefs Committee on Education and the NAN Education Committee members so that we could gauge, what you thought of it, because it is relatively new. But it does merge two fairly well-developed practice models, one from the University of Victoria's faculty, Law of Indigenous Research Unit, probably the first in Canada, as well as the University of Alberta Facilities of Native Studies. So that will be before, and hopefully we'll have something to report on that. The second activity that we have is the Banff Indigenous Leadership Training. And again, I'm starting with a quote here. So I'll just read it. First Nations are in a period of profound transformation, rebuilding their nations and governments that serve them. For First Nation leaders, whether elected or otherwise, practical governance and leadership training can be of great benefit during this period of transformation. So that's Dr. Tim Raybould. So we've applied for funding to cover the costs for 2 community members from each community to attend one of these leadership training courses. So there's a variety of topics. So governance for Indigenous council and boards, project management for Indigenous organizations, wise practices in Indigenous leadership, negotiation skills training, and establishing Indigenous institutions of governance. So the programs are generally fairly stable, and they run in semesters, so winter, fall, spring. But I'm hoping that we can get 2 community members from each community enrolled in the programs. There's 2 types of programs available, virtual or in person. In-person sessions, we would be sending you to the Banff campus to take the program, and virtual, obviously, you would be taking at home or wherever you have internet connection. So the second to last one is the OCAP workshops. So OCAP is ownership, control, access, and possession. This is basically how First Nations have control over their data collection process and how this information can be used. So we're going to be planning 4 sessions. Right now we only have 2, so December 5th to 6th and January 26th to 27th, 2013. They are virtual workshops, but again, we'll be setting up posters to see if anybody would be interested in that as well. And sorry, I lied, that was it. So miigwech, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Don't you gonna can I get you going much upon now quick? To go and schnabe mwing. I think that's what happens sometimes when you're always using English. You forget to use your own language. I just remembered sitting there that we should be using our language. I will open the floor if there's any questions on Claudia's presentation. She is here if you do want to ask her any questions. Just realized I'm alone up here. I don't know what happened to my co-chairs. I know that we've been operating on without breaks. I don't know if you guys caught that. Okay, so with that, thank you, Claudia, for your presentation. And we're going to get into the last part of our agenda, and that's calling upon Deputy Grand Chief to give his update on the Chiefs Committee on Education. You ready, Bobby? Okay.
Okay, well, this is the, I know this is the last agenda item for our 3-day meeting, but it's been a wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience that has come together. I know that we did not achieve quorum, but that's, you know, but we also had an opportunity to hear from all of our partners, you know, to hear from all of our education councils, our youth. That we had an opportunity to really set forth also the idea and intention that we could also bring to our winter assembly coming up. As you know, that one of the issues that we wanted to also put together, I know we got a resolution. I sought a resolution to bring back our Chiefs Committee on Education. You know, so I think it's really imperative that we brought back this Chiefs Committee, and as we are on the advent of the reset table with Indigenous Services Canada and the Crown, it's really important that we're getting our committee back together, and we'll be setting a meeting very shortly with our Chiefs Committee. And I just want to also acknowledge the fact that we have some members on it already. We're still working with our tribal council reps to identify individuals to sit on there as well. We had some changes over the past year or so, but it's great to have, I know we have 3 members on there so far. From Matawa, we have Chief Wayne Munias that's here. From the Muskego Council, we were able to visit them as well, and they identified that Chief Jason Gauthier will be sitting on there to represent Muskego. And also from Waban, we have Chief Sonny Batiste. They'll be sitting on there. But also in terms of the work that's happening with the Chiefs Committee, we are still working with identifying some members from Shibogama and Windigo. So there's been some changes there, and so we'll be working with them to establish who's going to be on the committee as well. So with saying that too, that meeting is going to be scheduled very shortly. Our staff will be reaching out to our leadership in that regard. Having saying that too, like I know we had all of our members from our Anishinaabe Nation Education Committee that was here for over the past couple of days, and we look forward to working with them and looking at some of the established priorities that has been identified with all the presentations that's been happening over the past couple of days. So we'll be working, we'll be taking all this information back with our education staff, with education department and education jurisdiction, and beginning to translate how that's going to work in terms of moving ahead, identifying all those priorities, outstanding priorities that many of our education councils and tribal councils have identified, and moving towards organizing ourselves for this one-stop shop for Anishinaabe Nation process, for education jurisdiction, for all the funding areas that we had. I look back to Sherry's presentation on those many priorities that we need to bring when we meet with Indigenous Services Canada on the reset table, looking at the data collection, funding protection, you know, like all those different areas with needs-based resourcing for our education systems, lifelong learning, whether it be from early years, daycares, special needs, you know, K-12 and post-secondary and lifelong learning. Immediately after our meeting as well, we're going to be scheduling focus discussion groups on these particular new areas with our education committee. looking at having a focused strategy session with early years and daycares and preschool. What do we have, what do we need, and what do we want in terms of establishing those in our First Nation communities. And also the very important work that's already happening with K to 12. So we'll be having established focus groups and sessions and strategy sessions on that to really build on the education reset platform on what's happening. And also getting together also a focus group, strategic group on the post-secondary education. We had a good report that was given to us during this week on the status of post-secondary education. We want to build on that, and we want to ensure that we have representation from all our education systems across NAN to be part of those focus group sessions to really look at ways to really bring up post-secondary education. Also, with lifelong learning, the training opportunities and all these different areas that we need to bring in various partners as well. We'll be organizing opportunities for that to have even, your education departments, your education systems to meet with, say, Ontario Works workers, Ontario Works administrators, various opportunities for trades and trades development. So, we're utilizing our staff. We're taking a look at our staff and seeing how best we could really align ourselves to really support all the discussions that's going to be happening, forthcoming with respect to the education reset table. So in terms of looking at all these things that we've heard, from our youth today, the learning and engagement supports that is required for lifelong learning from birth to all the way up to, when our people are still looking for opportunities for training and moving ahead and removing the education and achievement gaps that have been identified with our partners. The remoteness aspect, in our files, especially within NAN, we've undertaken this initiative on remoteness and remoteness quotient and quantifying how much it costs to deliver all these different services and what our First Nations require to really develop these systems, like building our own laws, building your own curriculum, ensuring that there's opportunities for your knowledge keepers to be part of that very important area of developing your own education systems. Like we said, $1 in Thunder Bay is different than $1 in Attawapiskat or $1 in Bearskin or Arrowland. So those are different areas that we really want to change the paradigm of the discussions to really move towards needs-based funding. No longer can the federal government or the province really discriminate against your children and your school systems by providing inadequate funding. And the fact that, I was even at this housing conference, and I know NAN is hosting their own housing conference coming up, and looking at ways where there's still, all of our communities are still in emergency mode with respect to homelessness, and the fact that many of our children, youth, and families are facing overcrowding within our First Nation communities. And so those are different areas too that we need to collaborate with other initiatives that are out there. I'm reminded of the work with the initiatives that we have with Child and Family Services. NAN has also intervener status at that Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. And the fact that, there has to be a NAN-specific process in all these particular areas, also with housing, and that's what we're doing with education as well by doing our education reset and having to ensure that there are decision makers sitting across from us when we're involved in these very important negotiations moving ahead. There's still going to be a lot of questions, chiefs, and everybody that's here, and our educators, and we're going to be doing our due diligence as well to be reaching out to each and every one of you in terms of what we were talking about here and some of the priorities that we want to work on. And so those are areas that we'll be working with our staff and with our department, with our Anishinaabe Aski Nation Education Committee members, really working with them And what I heard over the past year as well is we still need to listen. You know, we still need to listen to the various regional priorities that is part of the Education Committee. And, you know, there's some areas where, you know, we just have to take a step back and really listen, and also be able to convey all that information that's happening with the education reset. And what does that mean in terms of the negotiation processes that are going to happen? And I'm also reminded of the fact that there are good work that's happening, regional processes that are happening that we have to also respect and take a direction from. So I'm really encouraged and enthused by these past 3 days. The fact that we're all gathered here, it's been a long time coming by having an education forum such as this to really reiterate Anishinaabe-Aski Nation's priorities and aspirations in moving ahead with developing an education system that is totally reflective of our communities and our languages. And I promised you I'm going to be starting to speak the language myself. Mina gaibe machiang the Ginyo Ashdaik, gaining gava go Nishna Baemo. Nishbina on Sitosian, gaining new translator and Gabina. So gaining Ginger Sitosian and gaining Nigagi done. Get Gorge Mackie and Grand Chief, Gagin Shigdagagi, Nishbin sit to me. Executive. Okay, who understood me? See what I mean? Yeah, so we are so wondrous and diverse in our. Oh, translator, you got all that? Oh yeah, he understood me. Yeah, so that's the thing. Anishinaabe-Aski Nation, with its 49 communities, we're so diverse in our languages and our dialects, and we need to celebrate that. And I totally agree that you know, there's a day where we all would come in just speak in our languages and move ahead with that. And the youth, you know, need to lead the way with that particular area. But like I said, you know, this is a good stepping stone for the next areas that we're going to do with our education and our education reset. We have, you know, our Chiefs Committee planning meeting coming up. We also have other initiatives and meetings that are coming. We know we have an early years conference coming up next month that we'll give you information on. I know we have a housing summit that is coming up. So all these different areas that we'll need to really coordinate a lot of our activities is very necessary. I was so happy to see many different initiatives that were here listening as well, and all those opportunities where your education system's currently, like what can we do now? You know, you could also do an asset mapping at your community, what's available for benefits to your education systems, like the Choose Life program, like the Family Wellbeing program, like the band reps, the First Nation rep programs that if you haven't already done so, please see us so we could help develop those resources for your children, youth, and families for both on and off reserve. Looking at working with those educational institutions too as well that deliver some similar programs. But also at the same time too, there's other areas that we need to really look upon and take our municipal counterparts to task. Even in Thunder Bay and other municipalities, they just had a recent mayoral elections and councillors, you know, holding them to task. Like, we spend millions, if not billions of dollars each year in these municipalities. Like, what are you going to be doing to help, you know, work with our First Nations institutions, our First Nation communities in welcoming our students, making them safe, you know, making your healthcare system more, you know, respectful to the unique needs of our people and our students when we're entering these institutions. You know, everybody talks about reconciliation and the path towards that. Well, we need to hold all of our partners to tasks on these particular areas, especially within education. So I'm looking forward to the opportunities to work with you all again, hear from you individually as well, and working with your individual tribal councils. I know December's coming up, and I know many of your tribal councils are holding chiefs committees before the Christmas break. We're interested in coming to visit you there and also speak more on some of the priorities that's happening as well. So we're interested in working with you in developing those particular areas. And so we do have we'll be doing a signing ceremony with Indigenous Services Canada and CERNA, along with our Grand Chief here, to really kick off the education reset table. And in doing so, like I said, that we need to position ourselves for this one-stop shop, a NAN-specific shop that is going to look at all those different areas pertaining to really improving and moving forward our education systems. So with that, I'd just like to say, Chimigwech Kunugamanaka Ibiaik, Mina Gakchigagi Diman, Jijindamang, or Kinumagzo Najigadik. So Minashke, Mishman when Mishiang, Jibim Machia, and Gina Rajdag. Just give us a call, and we'll make sure that we're able to visit you. You like my Ojinglish there? That's how we are in Ireland. We start something in Ojibwe, English, and anyways, yeah. So Chimigwech as well, but I don't know. Did you want to? Yeah. Yeah. So Miigwech, and I'll turn back over to the chair.
So since the Grand Chief is here, would you like to say some closing remarks to the delegation?
Thank you, Deputy, for running an awesome meeting here. Thank you to your staff and the leadership who are here. I know over the years, education's, one of the chiefs may have brought up that we didn't have great attendance, was what I heard, and education would always get pushed back on the agenda. I remember as a deputy having education, and I go from day 1 to day 2 and day 3, and I'm like, hey, why are you pushing my file back on day 3 when you're putting up a fuss? But education is extremely important, as our deputy says, and many of our chiefs said. And for those listening, I was just stressing to our team that I have to admit, at times as NAN, as an executive, I know we're working. I'm not saying we're not working. We're working hard, but we need to do more. Pick something, whether it's post-secondary funding or early years, or other issues that are non-education, like nuclear waste or whatever. Pick something and really push it. Accepting of the status quo is being quiet and just sitting there and letting it happen. And our students expect us to speak up for them and fight for them and advocate for them when it comes to the cutting of their funds or things that they need for now and for the future. So the executive and I will surely be discussing some of those items that we really need to bring up with both levels of government and the general public. And thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, to all those listening and watching and guiding us online and up north. I know that we're in for winter time now, and we all know many issues start to hit us. January is a tough month for some reason, but I know that when we talk about our young people, to this day, as Chief Monia said, they're going to go back to school tomorrow. Many of them are going through their problems, so they need us to be there. So we're going to ensure that we're ready for any crisis, any issues that arise, and they're surely to arise. Things happen that are unexpected every day, every week in NAN. So we have a great team that's always ready to respond. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Miigwech.
Hello. So, I don't know. I guess I just kind of wanted to say thank you to all of you for letting me be part of this. This is my first time doing anything like this, so thank you for being patient with me, and sorry if I'm a little awkward. I guess listening to like all of the presentations really helped me learn a lot, and I don't know, I guess it kind of made me feel like proud of my achievements, hearing about like the barriers, and yeah, so I don't know. I know one of my biggest achievements is that I'm going to be graduating this year from high school, and I do plan on going to university. So yeah, I don't know. It calms my mind to help me know that there are I do have adult allies on my side. But other than that, this kind of brings our meeting to an end. So yeah, pretty much.
Miigwech, a big thanks to our youth co-chair, Tisha. Great job. Let's give her a hand again. So that concludes. We're just going to wrap up. We'll do Connie will finish off. We're just going to wait for the drum. So in the meantime, I'm going to talk for half an hour while we're waiting for the drum. I think we were scheduled to finish just after 4, so I think they're on their way, and we will be wrapping up. So with that, I want to say miigwech. You mean for these types of translations? If they ever want to do translations for any documents. Oh, okay. We have a not simultaneous? No. Okay. So things where departments can contact them if they want. Okay. Yep. I was just giving a reminder, if you would like to do translation for NAN, either translating documents or translating in other forms, please sign up at the registration table. If you would like to translate, they're always looking for translators. So just sign up, and they'll call on you once they need some type of translation. Deputy Grand Chief's got one more and 2 more.
Okay, I just wanted to give a shout out. We had John Ferris outside in his booth. This is his 20th year organizing the annual Indigenous Christmas show and sale at the CLE Heritage Building. So we invite everyone to, artisans from all across Anishinaabe Nation are bringing in their all their wares and everything that they have created, and it's a great show, and it's going to be December 3rd and 4th from 9 to 6 at the CLE Heritage Building. So we invite everyone across NAN to participate in that particular area. So I'd like to give a shout out there.
Okay. That was it? Yeah. Okay. Great, thank you. And again, miigwech majugo nanakum guys segmina majawab naguk yue mshtahiga gitajnjigik. Egodash miigwech gidnawa geginawa majugo magayaik majugo ganak tuik yue gaxchinendamik yue khunamageun awanagushkad zaga. So with that, miigwech, thanks. It's been an honor to see all the good work that you've been doing in the last three days. I'd like to acknowledge the work of the executive and all of the staff. So miigwech to everybody. I'm going to turn it over to Connie to close up, and we'll see you again next time.
Miigwech ganin dinadam gagi pisandaman. Miigwech, I'm extremely proud to see all the work that our people are doing for our people, because it is going to come from us. The change is going to come from us, and that is where true power is. So with that, I want to say, miigwech, thank you to the staff, the hard work that you do, the executive, miigwech, and to our elders that ground us, and to the drum and the beautiful songs. So with that, I'd like to call upon the elder to come and do the closing prayer, and then we'll do the closing drum. Jini Boyank. I really appreciate Lucy. Miigwech Ndina. Jini Boyank.
Pushu, miukenine nakumian pagi. Nakumukoguna kaki senik chmaus tuat hue chmaus vitiak. Ego una nakumakoe deputy. Stahian kioguna gutan hukik huenega gaistikiwat. En nakumakoa huma. Kanakumna kanagegun kaki kitnanok. Kaknake konga yan musikatek ekotas ispakusenimian antikismachaat uenutan kinua kitan kinua kap mutuek amiopekio nakumian. I just want to say thank you for NAN team and for deputy for all the work that they have done in getting this meeting together. I want to acknowledge Grand Chief here being present here today. And then I want to say thank you for the young people that were here. And so now we need we did a lot of talking, a lot of stuff was presented, a lot of people talked, and now we need to put action on it. And the Gish Majaya Kishmasai Kishmutu Kishin Kingatakunamek Mi Gishi Emhiayan Sembatun to Machumnan Kanakumgo Menukaki Wichishak Huekakiska Ganskiska Kakimao Chitiak Uguna Gukmakanak Egomina Utan Gunak Napis Stayan Gunep Mutuat Huistikiwat Kanakuman Kisawenchikiun. Mrs. Paksenimian, Sweetchatoa, Washme, Antikish Mutuat, Antikish Machawat, Huene, Utankuna, Kap Mutuat. Egomina Antikish Wichaganogan, Skat sick, the Washimanak, Gonagashkunuat, Kenakumu Jesus. Egomina and Dometamon, Gonaganiganskamot, Chukma. Chukmakwe, Chukma, Gomina, Ugmakanak, the Metamog, Udankinoaga, Motuat, Jusho and Matwa. O God, our Father, our Creator, we give you thanks for this time we had together. I just pray a blessing upon each one as everyone goes in different ways. I pray a special blessing for our leaders, for our Grand Chief, and for deputies, and all the workers and the NAN team, Lord, that got this meeting together. I ask you that you will give them rest, and I pray that you give safety to those that will be traveling, and we continue to bless our young people, our families, that you protect them. You know, we're still struggling with COVID. We ask your protection, Lord, your healing upon each one of us. Imagine Jesus, amen.
Safe travels till next time, till we meet again.
Good job.
Thank you once again, Anna. Yes. Yeah.